Hi, and welcome to week 5 of the semester. This is a week in which we will spend a good deal of time talking about the development of ancient Greek civilization. We have a lot of material actually to cover this week, and so I'm sure you're all rested from the long weekend last week, and then a relatively short week this week with not too much in the way of reading. This week we have a bit more reading and a lot of different kinds of ideas to think about and talk about as we go along. This week will be particularly important, therefore, in setting the framework for much of what we'll be talking about over the rest of the semester, because many of the institutions that developed in Greece in the 8th, 7th, 6th, 5th centuries BC continued on, although modified, but they continued on in large measure for the rest of of antiquity. And we'll be looking at different kinds of political institutions as diverse as aristocracy, monarchy, democracy, and their various permutations. And it's important for you to get a good grounding of what these concepts mean. The term democracy is one that people today tend to throw around as though it meant, I don't know, either whatever you like, that is, whatever you like is democratic and whatever I like is not, or it means whatever the social, economic, and political situation in the United States is like, and there's not much more thought given to it than that. And yet, these terms, and particularly democracy, have real meanings. They have real significance. There are definitions, and we need to be sure we understand what these definitions were and how they work. Our starting point will be looking at Greek society in the 8th and 7th centuries that was dominated by the institution of aristocracy. And it would be very easy for you to get the idea of classical aristocracy wrong, to think that basically aristocracy means people going around with fancy clothes and going to fancy restaurants and having lots of money. And although the aristocrats in classical Greece might have had some fancy clothes, in the beginning they didn't have any money because there wasn't any money. Money was not really invented until the 6th century BC, and so these aristocrats did not get their position because they were wealthy, but rather some of them became wealthy because they were aristocrats. That being an aristocrat in a classical context meant essentially being a member of an aristocratic family, and that family might be wealthy, probably would be, but it didn't have to be. What really mattered was the lineage. It was the sort of thing that you could not get into, you could not break into, you could not buy your way into it. You were born into it or you were not. And this is a kind of concept that some of you may have a little bit of difficulty understanding. And yet, remember, we're not telling you this is something good or bad. It's just something that existed, and that's how people looked at things. And of course, as time went on, there were various oppositions to aristocracy. Very rarely were these revolutionary. That is, very rarely were aristocracies overthrown, although that did happen on a few occasions. But more commonly, people accepted aristocracy as just a way of life. And indeed, the first efflorescence, the first flowering of ancient Greek culture took place during the aristocratic period. And that's a kind of tension between, on the one hand, aristocratic government and society and economy, and on the other,